Is there anything that you would like to bring forth to the listeners?
I wanted to ask you, how's your heart feeling right now? I've never been asked that question before, so I'm like so curious.
It is amazingly well, curious, joyous. Um, is there sadness in there? There's a little bit of unease just because there's some external things going on. Yet in the most part, it's well and joyous. Yeah. Thanks for asking me.
It's a really good question to ask people. Like I always ask people, what are you passionate about? And I love the answers, but how's your heart right now? Like, I mean, where's your heart at? And like, that's such a good question. So good.
Yeah, because like I said, this podcast is about self-reflection and getting the essence of people. So that question has people drop in. Sometimes there's been like one or two that have like, oh, it's beating pretty well, and they don't understand to drop in and be self-reflective. And then, or you'll get some of them, they're like, should I be concerned? Like, did something else come up with COVID that I don't? And I'm like, oh my gosh, no.
There's something that I don't know. Oh goodness.
So it's like, What are 3 things you cannot go without to support your mental well-being?
Running will definitely be one. It is beautiful to start my day with a win. So running in the morning or just having some time in the morning for myself is really important. Weirdly, I don't touch a camera every day. Like, there's plenty of editing to do and all that stuff. So it's not usually a camera. I'd say running, I definitely need to do. Writing really helps me, whether it's journaling or just kind of expressing a thought. Even when I edit, I write out what I'm doing. It really helps me process. And my day is always better when I talk to someone, because I can go weeks without speaking to another individual, which is weird. But I think a lot of people working from home and stuff, even if you don't have any meetings or any particular phone calls, you can go pretty long while if you live by yourself without actually talking to another individual. So I do my best. If I didn't have any meetings or calls, I'll call my brother or my grandma. She's 95. I love talking to her. She's back in New York. She's amazing to have a conversation. She's all there. She's good. She still takes care of herself and everything. So I love hearing stories about her growing up. So yeah, I would definitely say running, writing, and just connecting on the phone with somebody each day helps my mental well-being for sure.
You put this quote on your Instagram.
What did I say?
And I'm going to ask what you were going through and what maybe revelations you have now about it.
Mm-hmm.
Setting boundaries does not mean putting up walls.
Oh, yeah. My therapist said that. So I put that up because I it's very easy for me to focus, to put on horse blinders and just be like I said, I can go kind of the whole day without talking to other people because I'm so focused on what I'm trying to do. And my cousin will attest to this. When I first moved to Los Angeles, I thought people were like a distraction. So I didn't go out. I didn't hang out with anyone. I just felt like if I do anything to slow myself down, I'm not going to hit the target. Like I really just need to focus and be by myself. So it isolated me. It made me very lonely. And it just created a lot of disconnect with people that wasn't necessary. And I thought, well, you got to create boundaries. Like you got to be able to focus and do your thing. And so there were some people who have been reaching out to me from it feels like almost like a past life, old people that I haven't talked to in years. And I was talking to my therapist about it. So I was like, if I have to reconnect with all these people, it's going to take so much time out of my schedule. And, I'm freaking out about my time. And she was just like, boundaries don't mean walls. Like if you are going to work today for 5-6 hours, then whoever's reaching out to you, all you have to do is let them know you won't be available till 3 p.m. And then talk to them then. You don't have to completely not talk to these people or shut people out. You can just let them know when you're available. And then if these people can't adjust to your schedule, then okay, then maybe right now, this is just not a time for you to be in each other's lives. But it doesn't mean you have to shut people out in order to create these boundaries. So she opened up a brand new sort of thought process for me. And, like I said, I can get very just, I want everything to be right. I want my schedule to look right. I want my time to be right. I want everything to whatever. And she just, she blew my mind when she said like boundaries aren't walls. So, that's what I was going through, was just thinking about my time and afraid to let people in, especially from the past, and just thinking that they're going to make me revert to who I used to be, which was, I'll shut everything down if someone needs me because I want to make sure they're happy and people please and stuff like that. And she just reminded me, you're not the same person you were. You've done a lot of new things, and and they're not the same person they are. And also, you have enough space. You're lacking nothing. You have space for people and relationships and friendships in your life. And going back to what you said about happiness, I'm glad you pointed that out, because she pointed that out to me too. And she mentioned that people keep saying or maybe it was a different person that said this. Oh, it was a different interview that I did. Sorry. It was another psychologist, a neuroscientist, actually. He said that people keep pursuing happiness, and that seems to be the problem, especially when it comes to depression and different things like that. But if you can just think about having a whole life, like a whole experience, approaching things wholeheartedly, and not really thinking about just happiness as the goal, things will kind of expand and open up in a different way for you. So when she mentioned this, not putting up walls, I was like, everything just started connecting. Like, I can have a whole life. There's so many different parts of me: my health, my family, my relationships, my work, my eating habits. There's so many parts of me. I don't need to only have one thing happening at one time. So it's kind of a long explanation because I'm still working through that. It's literally the last thing I posted on my Instagram. I haven't even posted anything since. I need to. But that was a big revelation for me, because I do think a lot of people post about boundaries. And for some reason, that's the way I took it. Shut everything out, be focused. But boundaries aren't walls. Like, they're just parameters, but they're not walls. People can still be in your life. You can still have everything you want. So it's a long explanation because I'm still working through it. But I really, really like that now that phrase is in my life.
If I can give a little bit of a different insight for boundaries, a lot of times people think that you need the wall that you're visualizing or you feel inside you is because you think you need to push people away, the boundaries for other people. Really, what the boundaries is that you have to know that you have needs and you support them. And most times we don't think we are allowed to have needs. And then other people feel like they come trample. And so we'll blame them. Yet really it was for us to speak up for our needs and know that we are allowed to have needs and advocate for them. And we are allowed to say no. Whereas when we were younger, a lot of times you weren't allowed to say no, and you just had to do what the adults or whatnot had to do. So when we mature, it's to come back into that authority that you can protect yourself and you can say no. And you don't have to caretake other people's emotional states.
Ooh, I like that explanation. I like it. I like that insight. Yeah, it's great. You should post that. Have you posted that?
I coach it. So I talk to people about it. Yeah. So it's because I understand when, we hear these words, because that's what me and my friend were speaking about. We don't communicate properly. Words are not used in the proper definition. And a lot of things we had to interpret within ourselves. And so we did it the way we interpreted, yet we didn't even realize it was harming ourselves. It was putting holes with an H into us and not keeping our wholeness together. And so in that, it's like, okay, how do I make sense from the inside so I can have it in a feeling, not in an intellectual, because we like to intellectualize things. Yet when it has to drop into the heart, you're like, oh, what is this thing? And it's like, yeah, no, it has to go down here. You can think a good game up there, yet it's like to be it and to embody it. That's a whole different level and dimension. And so for the boundaries, it's always remembering boundaries are about me, not about them. But it's very easy to go, you're the problem and let me put the walls up. And it's like, no, you're just forgetting that you can tell people I'm not interested. I'm not available. I need you in doses. Like that's the thing I'm teaching the younger generation. It's okay to be, maybe you might not tell them, but to tell yourself, I can only take this person in doses. And that's okay. Like, love doesn't mean that you sacrifice yourself to be miserable just to be in the tradition of this is how you are for other people. No, you got to protect yourself and your mental well-being. There's certain places that we go that's uncomfortable. Yes, you have to be around certain people or do certain things. Yet, if you have the choice to do something, do it in doses. Like, I can
People
only
love
be with
you.
you for 5 minutes.
People so respect it. Like the more that I do that, the more that I'm available when I'm available and different things. It's become like it started off being very fearful, like, oh gosh, this person, maybe I'll lose this opportunity if I'm not available this day and all those different things. And, it's become more of a sign of respect, whether it's a personal relationship or a business relationship, when I let people know when I'm available and when I'm not, and when I say no to certain things. And I mean, negotiating money, is just a whole other piece to this, but, being able to get paid for, what you want, and being able to say no and walk away from something for more opportunity, that was a big part of sort of interesting, like dropping the client lifestyle a little bit. Like, I've been working with clients for 5 years and I really liked it, but there's a certain budget that comes with people who are self-starting entrepreneurs that grow small businesses. But now I'm working with a bunch of production companies, and it's so interesting that I can, work a little bit less days and make more money, because the budget is there. And there's nothing right or wrong. I love people who are self-starters and who've, grown things themselves, but, it's all their money. A lot of these people are reinvesting their own money over and over and over again. So I don't know what that feels like. I can understand when, there's limits that you have, but being able to negotiate and make really good money in Los Angeles feels so good. Like it feels so good. And that's a big part of boundary setting too, is saying no to things that don't serve you and asking for more. And I give the credit to my cousin Danita for that too. When I first came here, she just kept encouraging me and stuff as I was, making $50 for a 12-hour day, just trying to do anything and saying yes to everything, because that came back to what we said, the trusting myself. I just wanted to prove that I could get the gigs. Now I know I can get the gigs. Now it's about, making the amount of money that I feel like I deserve, and I can, do what I love and eat well. I don't want to be a struggling artist. I love to make art. I love to tell stories, and I want to eat well too and live a happy life and be able to provide if one day I decide to have a family. So yeah, I think I love what you're saying. Like, it's nice to be able to say no, and it's scary at first, but really the respect and everything that comes with it. And then you're helping other people. Cause I know when I say no and negotiate, and I talk to my mom about it, she'll go and say no and negotiate something else. It's like, you don't even realize the people you're helping and supporting when you stand up for yourself, when you take care of yourself in these kinds of ways. When I started waking up and running before the sun came up, it's been a little bit hard lately, but beating the sun, I started getting people from Iceland and all these different places doing the same thing and feeling inspired to take care of themselves. And it wasn't just about running. It was about a win for the day. It was about filling your cup before you go anywhere else. So if nothing goes according to plan for the rest of the day, you started your day with a win and for yourself, and your feelings and your emotions aren't based on your work or your results or what happens during that day, but it's all based on you and how you showed up for yourself earlier in the day. So I just want to say that if anyone's listening and they're like, I tried, or, I'm a little scared, and it's like, everything is scary at first, but you really are a ripple effect. When you start to take care of yourself and set these boundaries and say no and take care of yourself, other people around you, your family, your loved ones, start to do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for that share. It's, I believe it's Maya Angelou, people treat you the way you allow them to treat you. And to really understand that, because you'll think, oh no, they should know better. And it's like, if you didn't communicate it, they don't know. They don't know.
No. And my brother, I tell him this all the time, my younger brother, James, and he reminds me, it's a weird awakening, but it's true sometimes. People really aren't thinking about you that much. Like they're so focused on themselves. So when you do something and you wish someone would have said thank you, or, you feel like they're not listening, I have to remind myself all the time, it's not personal. Like, it's just sometimes people we're wrapped up in what we're trying to do every day. And so, yeah, it's an interesting thing, but that's another thing that I tell him and he tells me, it's just like, nobody cares. Like, do your thing. Don't take it so personally, keep moving forward. And like I said, it's going to be a lot of self-awareness and taking care of yourself, of why you care so much, why you needed that person to say thank you or acknowledge you when you did those things. And like what you said earlier, when you're so good at giving, but not good at receiving, I'm verbally saying I receive when you give me these compliments, because it is hard for me to sometimes see myself in a particular light. But the more that I say I receive and I practice it, the better I get at just, like you said, trusting myself and knowing that, this is who I am and this is what I built, and it's okay to acknowledge it and to let other people celebrate it, and then to recognize the greatness in others and celebrate them too.
Bring yourself back to when you were 18.
18.
Yeah.
What's like doing at 18? Okay.
And you have only 3 words you can tell yourself. It can be in a phrase or just 3 individual words. What would they be?
You are enough.
Do you see the value you bring in the world?
I do. I hesitate because it's this weird thing of trying to be like, okay, I understand that I've created things that no one else has created, right? And I've struggled with, well, if I didn't get that job, someone else would have done it. But where I see the value is realizing that no one is going to ask the questions that I'm going to ask. They're not going to shoot the film the way I'm going to shoot it. They're not going to light it the way I'm going to light it. So where I see my value is in my individuality and my uniqueness and how I show up as a person. I'm a middle child. I'm a Black woman. I grew up on the East Coast and I live on the West Coast. I've only been to one place that needed a passport, Guatemala. Like, there are many things in my life, and the reason why I see things the way I see things. And the next shooter or editor or director or producer has lived a totally different life. And so what makes my storytelling valuable is how I see, how my perspective is, and how I show up. And so, like I said, I hesitate because I'm reminding myself of that. I still have so much work to do in that area. But that's what I know to be true, because I've seen other people film things similar to me. I've seen other people ask questions and show up in different ways. And like, oh yeah, you can give us the same script and we're going to shoot 2 different films. So that's why I recognize my value and my individuality when it comes to storytelling. And that's what pushes me when I get very doubtful, or when I get to a place of like, oh, can I direct a whole movie? I don't know what that looks like, but understanding that, yes, there's whatever script I get or whatever documentary I'm a part of, there's a reason why I'm there. And there will always be my print, my individual print that no one else will leave on that project like I will.
I'm going to bring you deeper.
Okay.
I'm going to take you out of you being a producer. Do you see the value that Tiff brings into the world?
Yes, I do. And like, I'm saying more of an explanation because I didn't see it before, but how I see it, I know it's still in the production realm, but when I show up, kind of similar to you, how you're really good at listening and seeing the person and kind of being very much in the moment. If I don't have a camera in my hand and I'm just with another individual, I am so excited about who they are as a person and making sure they feel heard and valued in a way that if nothing else goes right that day, but they felt good because someone was listening to them and really cared about them. So being enough, just existing. Yes, I am enough and valuable just existing, but I enjoy how I make other people feel about themselves. I enjoy bringing love and joy and just listening to others. And so outside of film work, outside of production, I enjoy being a very curious little girl wherever I go and not coming with any pretenses or, doing my best not to judge or anything and just show up and be there for people. I really, really like that. One of the directors or producers on a production a while ago called me the talent whisperer, because no matter who was in front of us or who was in front of the camera, whether they're scientists and they were super heady and couldn't get out of them, their head, or if they were like super artistic like me and talk forever without like finishing a sentence, I can make them feel happy and relaxed in front of the camera, whether they've been in front of it or not. And so, yeah, I know that just existing, I bring value. And I think outside of the production and filming world, just showing up and being myself and yeah, letting other people feel heard and seen, that I love bringing that wherever I go.
When you're having low days, how do you see the greatness in you and what tools do you use?
I call people. Those days I'm probably on the phone all day. And I'm not talking about my lows when I'm on the phone with them. I'm just talking about them. I realize that my low days are typically super selfish, not in a bad way. It's more just like, if I'm really in my head, it's hard for me to push past it by myself. So I'll call a friend and just ask them how they're doing. What's going on? How was their weekend? And I'm not avoiding my feelings. I'm just allowing space for something else to take up my mind. So that when I'm done with that call and I'm done, giving love and feeling love, when I go back to the situation that might have been making me feel low or stressed or whatever, I can see it from a different loving perspective. So that's usually on a low day. Sometimes I try to push myself into work, and if I realize I'm not in that creative state, then I'll call a friend. And luckily I have a lot of freelancer friends who don't work 9 to 5. So usually somebody is around to talk, even if it's for like 5-10 minutes. And if I can't get anyone on the phone, I'll send a bunch of love audio notes to people. And that makes me feel really good, to just give love. That really supports me on my low days. And then sometimes I just need to watch something super funny, like just a really silly show to get me out of my head. But that's the goal. It's always to get me out of my thinking for a moment and into my feeling, right? Out of the intellectual, more into the body. I know that's how I am. I analyze everything. So yeah, on my low days, that's what I do. I use the love of other people. I try to call and reach out. I try to use some comedy if I really am like, can't get a hold of anybody or I'm not feeling it. I might just take a break that day, but running really helps too. Even if it's in the middle of the day and it's just 1 mile, to be outside, to sweat, to kind of like let the dopamine and adrenaline and all that stuff in my brain hit a little bit, right? Like there's a chemical, reaction when I run for a mile that helps my body too. So there's a lot of different tools. And I try not to get too stuck in what's going to work for me that day and just feel it. Like if today is, I'm just laid out, that's what I am. If today I'm just reading a book, that's what I'm doing. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways, a lot of different tools I'll use, but I can't always tell which one's going to work.
And it's feeling your feelings. That's you're looking at your needs. And that is a skill that people don't even realize is a tool, because most of them don't even know what their needs are. When I ask people like, what are your needs? They're like, huh? What is that? And it's like, you could have your emotional needs. You could have your basic needs. Like, what is it for you? It could be, I need a quiet room with no distractions. That's a need. Yet some people are like, well, I can't ask for that. And it's like, yeah, you can. If that is going to support your creativity or your mental well-being, you have to be able to identify what is it that you need to be within your body and to be in touch with, your center core.
100%. And I think I'm glad that you remind your audience of that a lot, and the people that you talk to, because there was a point, I talked about this publicly, so it's fine. There was a point at the School of Greatness. I was just like, I was gaining a lot of weight. I was really sad all the time, but I'm meeting all these, millionaires and billionaires, and I'm doing all the interviews and I'm posting on Instagram and people are like, your life is great. And but just like everything individually felt really wrong. And, you get to a point where you blame others, right? They're working me too hard. It's too many hours or whatever like that. And I'm so grateful to have been in that environment, because everything is about responsibility and taking ownership for yourself in the school of greatness. And I had a moment where I was like, okay, I need to do everything I possibly can do for me before I say something outside of me is why I'm feeling this way. And that's when I started running and taking care of myself and doing things that, like, following all the nutritionists and people that we had on the podcast and listening to their advice. And I really did everything I possibly could to make myself feel better before I said something or someone outside of me is the reason to blame for these individual things. So, like I said, I'm glad you're bringing this up to your audience, because it can feel like, well, this is just the world. And I know a lot of people talk about systematic racism, a lot of things that are happening. I understand it. I understand there are things that are built in, that there's a lot of fight to happen, but also, what can you do today to take responsibility for your own whole life, right? Maybe not just happiness or joy, but just the whole of how you're feeling. And I'm not a mom. I don't have a family, as far as like having to take care of other people and my time and different things. So I never want to speak from a perspective of like, you're the reason, or don't make excuses. Everyone there's people who have to had to have taken care of their parents their whole life. And, there's so many situations that I haven't been a part of, but I just encourage people to look within themselves and to see, is there something really that I can do a little bit better today? Can I just walk a mile in the morning? Can I have 10 minutes to myself before I sit with my family? What's going to help me mentally strengthen and get myself together before I start to say it's something outside of me that I can't control, or, blaming others or in other kinds of ways. I think, I love saying this. There's a difference between being vulnerable and being a victim. You know what I mean? And victim mentality is, once you're in it, it's so hard to break because you can't really see past it. And I'm speaking from personal experience. But once you're able to sort of just stop being in blame mode and really taking responsibility for yourself, it opens you up to new ideas and new things that you may not even thought were possible. So, like I said, I'm really happy you bring this to your audience, to just constantly looking inside of yourself and bringing the attention to yourself of what you need. What are your needs today? So that everyone around you, like, whether they feel good or not, they're going to be better when you take care of your needs first. I really do think that.
Yeah. You mentioned racism. Have you ever experienced it, and what is your definition of it?
So this is hard for me because I've experienced it in all kinds of ways throughout my life. Like, I've heard this said before, so I'm not originally when I said this, but I'm happy to know at least that I'm not alone in this, that we moved a lot when I was little. So we'd had like some all white schools, some all black schools, and I never fit in. Either I was too black for the white kids or too white for the black kids. I mean, I've been called red bone and all these different things, especially in the Caribbean community and stuff. I just was never quite, I don't know, enough to fit in where people would invite me to parties or anything like that. And like I said, in the white schools, it was interesting because, there was just no connection whatsoever. Just always disconnection. So I got very close to my family growing up. Like I said, we traveled to all these different churches and different things. So my brothers are my best friends. My parents have been together for 34 years. So I have a very close relationship with my mom and dad. They've never been out of the house necessarily. They've always been together. So I've always kind of stepped to myself because of that and so many other different things. I didn't quite experience work stereotyping and racism until I moved to Los Angeles, because luckily I was able to meet a black man who's a DP. His name's Johnny Simmons. He's an Emmy award-winning cinematographer, part of the Directors Guild of America. Like, somehow I met him very early out here, and he brought me on set, and his whole crew was super diverse. Black, Hispanic, white, and a lot of people on the set were saying like, don't get used to this because this is not what you see. And I didn't really understand because he kept bringing me everywhere. So everywhere I went, I felt like I was blending in. When I started getting hired for other gigs, I was the only woman on set with a camera, or the only person that looked like me, of darker skin or tone or anything like that. So it was interesting to see it now, because now I show up on set and I am literally the only person that looks like me. So I've experienced it in a sense of being outcast by it, no matter where I am. And then I've experienced in a sense of, oh, okay, I am a unicorn right now, like very individually here. I don't take pride necessarily. Like I'm happy that I made the cut or whatever that is, but I want to bring more women and people that look like me, not just to feel comfortable, but also because I know we can do this job too. And it's a little strange to be the only person that looks like me. So back to your question, I mean, since Black Lives Matter and stuff, there was like a lot of reading of books and everything, like White Fragility, and there was another one. There's a couple of books I was reading about racism and
Did you read My Grandmother's
stereotypes.
Hands?
I haven't. Should
It's
I
really
read that?
good. Yeah.
Okay, I will read that
My
because I've
son
been
is,
learning.
I have a 26-year-old and he just finished an Audible and he was like, that unearthed a lot of the things that were triggered and made sense of my childhood. And
My Grandmother's
yes,
Hands.
yeah.
Okay, I
I'll
will
send it to
totally.
you. Yeah, I'll send it to you the link so
Thank
that you know
you.
exactly which one. Yeah.
I am learning more and more about racism and stereotyping because my mom, which I thank her for, she never let us talk. Like my dad sometimes, he knows this, he'll be fine when he hears this. Sometimes he would make jokes or whatever, like, and say something like, oh, that white guy or something, and my mom would get so mad. It's like we are all children of the body of Christ. Like we weren't allowed to say white, black, age. Like we weren't allowed to make any kind of jokes or even like if we described somebody, we never brought up their race. So even sometimes when people had me identify as a Black woman, it felt so weird because I would never identified myself as that when I was younger. So I'm still in a state of learning what racism is. So learning stereotyping and different things, because I've had situations where an older white couple would say something like, oh my God, you speak so well. And I thought that was a compliment. I didn't realize that was like compared to, I guess, other people they met that look like me,
You know
that I
what?
speak
But
so well.
sometimes I think okay. I think
Tell me.
sometimes we overanalyze things, and it can be that you were just an individual and you speak well.
Maybe that's what it was. But when I say it to someone else, that's what I
They're
get.
like,
I
oh
get
no,
that feedback. That was racist. So I that's what it's hard for me because my mom did her absolute best to shield us from it. I got it in school a lot, but as far as home, it was never something that settled in. So even understanding who I am in the world as how people see me, right, is
yeah.
still something that I'm learning and I'm exploring. And I think it's so interesting because being a Black woman and having been the producer at the School of Greatness, where it was the white man who was showing up on set and everything, it was his, but I'm helping with the questions, I'm helping with everything that was being produced was by my hand and all those different things. So him getting any slack was just like, oh, well, it's not even him. There's, as far as, I don't know. It's just so interesting that a lot of people are being even grouped together. If you're white, you're this kind of way. If you're Black, you're this kind of way. And so I am, like I said, I'm learning. I'm doing my best to sort of stay off Twitter sometimes when people do get into rants and everything. Like you said, interpretation is being taken to the extreme. So sometimes I feel like I can't even make up my own mind if I start to go down these deep articles and different things of what was said about other people. So when I show up to my job, I do the very best that I possibly can as who I am. I don't know if that person hired me as a diversity hire or if they hired me because of my skill set. I may never know. But if I think about that, I won't do my job well. So when I get opportunities, when I have gigs, I do everything that I possibly can. I haven't been like in school one time in like eighth grade, I got called the N-word when I was in an all-white school, and that was weird. But since then, I haven't had any racial slurs or anything like that. Like I said, red bone is certain things for the Caribbean community, but overall, in my adult life, I haven't experienced any kind of direct stereotyping or anyone name calling me or doing anything in that individual kind of way. There's been times where I've held myself back being in a room where I'm the only person that looks like me, where I've sort of stopped saying certain things because I wasn't sure how it was going to come out or what people were going to say. So, like I said, before it felt like a bit of a chore because it felt so heavy the way everything was hitting. But now I do feel like it's interesting to understand the way things work, that like, of all the directors that have been nominated and won Oscars, it's good to know the history behind people that look like me and who are doing these different things. But Yeah, I never want to think that there's a system working against me. Even if it's true, I don't want to necessarily mentally really let that in, because I want to create possibilities and continue to work towards the fact that there's possibilities. And I want my niece to feel that way too. And so conversations and stuff around her, it's never about systematic and you can't do this, or they're always going to be against you in this kind of way. I don't speak like that in general, but especially not around her, because I want her to feel the possibilities. And if I start to open up doors to help her along the way, great. That's my motivation and my inspiration. But yeah, I'm still in a place of learning and listening and having these conversations that I would really shy away from, because I'd be really afraid to answer the question you just asked me, because I don't want to sound stupid or like I'm uninformed. But I really am in a place of learning more about representation, about how things are working in the world politically, and when it comes to media. So yeah, that's where I am. I'm in a place of learning. I've experienced racism, but really it's usually just if I'm the only person that looks like me on set, I just always wonder why, how did I get in here, and how can I get more people in here with me?
Yeah. I think it's ironic too that sometimes to go against the grain of what everybody else is saying can feel really uncomfortable. So imagine you feel uncomfortable to answer a question on racism when it's just a perception. Yet
Right.
we feel that if we're not going along with the narrative of what others are saying, then we're going to, like, we're not part of the team, and we're naive, or all these kind of things. And it's like, yet this is how I've perceived in my experience. You're going to tell me that what I've experienced is wrong, and tell me that I need to make life harsh, or think that I have to work twice as hard, or it's like,
Right.
I'm
I
already,
never heard that. My mom never said you have to work twice as hard to get half of what they get. There was never a they, so it's like when you say that, that phrase comes up so much now. And
I know.
I never heard that growing up.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay. So the ones that didn't experience that, they're timid to even say anything, because it's like you said, Twitter and the mobs that just come with this loud voice, like, you're not right. And it's like, yet this is my experience. You're not going to diminish my experience because your experience is different. And that's where I really don't appreciate this cancel culture, because then that means there is not going to be any healing, because we have to be in the uncomfortable conversation. So if you cut everything off, you're not able to hear all the different ways of people and the experiences that people have had. This cancel culture is just like being punitive and being judgmental. And you're not wanting to feel the uncomfortableness of asking somebody, well, why are you thinking like this? Why are you treating another person like this? And if we don't ask the whys and listen to the stories to get some context, then we're just repeating the same histories.
I like that. I mean, I think you said it. I think learning how to listen is a skill set that is probably one that I want to continue to improve on, but I think might help some of these conversations, because everyone's ready to argue their point and ready to hit their philosophy. And it's like, if we were able to sit with someone was saying, like, what I love about Lewis is that he always kept the pauses in. Whenever he asked a really, like, deep question or anything like that, he would let the person sit there. He didn't try to fill the space or anything with what they were going to say. He let them think about it. And in that, it's beautiful, to just let that person sit, as opposed to just you have your argument ready. You're just waiting for that person to stop talking so you can dive in and go right for it. So, I think the art of listening is something that, like I said, I want to continue to grow in. I hope more people take that seriously, that being able to listen and hear what someone's really saying, even if you don't agree with it, is really, really special and beautiful, to have someone else be heard and let their perspective be heard. And yeah, the need to be right now is a little exhausting when it comes to these issues.
Yeah, it's and I'm like, who wants to even, with this cancel culture, what I know is that you have to lean into your wrongs. You have to be able to call your own BS. And when you can get it witnessed by other people, it adds that alchemy to really engage and change. Yet who wants to call out anything that they've done wrong with this cancel culture? Because you're not able to get anything, do anything wrong, or make any mistakes. So then nobody's able to really heal in a community aspect, because we're not going to say anything, because everybody's going to start, trying to cut us off, or, ostracize us, or like, it's just fascinating. I'm like, you're saying you want change, yet you're not even willing to feel anything. You're not willing to witness the pain, to see. And, I know I'm very unique because I do the work, and I am very transparent. And I think what is lacking in a lot of people is they don't want to see the humanity in them. Like, I have no problem saying that I know there's a Hitler in me. Doesn't mean that I'm going to do the things that Hitler did. Yet it's recognizing that if one human has done something, that means all humans have the capabilities. We just may not make those decisions, and we may not have had those experiences to light that up. Yet to say that, oh, I would never do that, I would never you don't under, and everything else, you're not taking into consideration that you're a part of something bigger. And then if you're saying never you would do something, you're not able to listen to somebody else's story, because you don't know, you weren't in that experience. And just because maybe it was similar, yet nothing is to the T of knowing what somebody else's experience is and the choices that are made. Right. So it's great to be like, oh, I am perfect on this. Yet when push comes to shove, and if you were in the same exact, predicament, it doesn't mean that you wouldn't be doing the certain things. And I think that's what's lacking in listening. We're so repulsed to see what is possible in us.
Have you read The Power of Habit, Charles Duhigg?
No, I haven't.
So good. There's like the third part where he talks about why after Rosa Parks got arrested, like why that pushed the movement, even though there had been so many other people that had been arrested and different things for sit-ins and stuff like that. But he talks about the group mentality of why we do what we do. And at that point, all the marches and stuff were a lot of youth, like, young people. And it was just cool to do it. Your friend was going to go do it, and they were going to do it. And you would think that it was, everyone just really wanted to stop all the racist things that were happening. And at that point, it was just trending. It was something that if you weren't doing, people were like, well, why aren't you going to the march? And it was just, so I like that book because it talks about advertising and marketing and why we do what we do. And I think a lot of social media is just advertising and marketing. No matter what it is, we are marketing and selling something, even if it's just ourselves. But The Power of Habit, I read that book twice because I always want to know, why we get on these things or why people get on board. But I was curious to know why, out of everybody, Rosa Parks was the one. And it turned out that she was a community leader. She was in a bunch of different churches. She was well known in the community. So when it happened to her, it became a bigger outcry because she had way more connections than the other individuals who had been arrested before her. So it was just, it's so interesting, like you said, like knowing our history and what we're capable of, but human behavior and why we do what we do. When you talk about Hitler, it's just like, in their right mind, why would so many people follow this, right? But when you make people feel individual, light skin versus dark skin, Jamaican versus Haitian, like when you separate and make one person feel powerful or the other, what we're capable of, like it's really scary when you feel like you're better or more powerful or these different things. But like you said, I think if we can continue to have these conversations and open up and to call out our own faults and also be able to listen to other people's as well and just be in a place of learning, hopefully more and more of these conversations will open up our minds and allow us to connect. Like I said, like my goal is like we can have more of these conversations and I can help people connect around the world by just showing these videos of who we are individually. That really is one of my biggest missions, is to make humanity see each other. So yeah, I'm glad we get to talk about it, and thank you for creating the space for me to be open about it. I don't really talk about how, my skin color or my gender or anything has really affected my life. Because, when people ask you, what's it like to be a Black woman? Like, I've never experienced anything else. How would I know? how this differs from anybody else's life. This is the only life I've lived. This is the only way I've looked my entire life. So I can't tell you, what this is like compared to your life. I can just give you some of my experiences, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's fascinating the way that we ask, or I like I said, communication. It's the most, you want to get misunderstood, communication will do it, and especially the English language. Oh my gosh. Yet we don't take time to see the emotions and things, and that's where you get the context. Yet in the world, it's like, no, 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 we don't have time for emotions. Just get it done and all this. Yet there's no understanding unless you have the context and you have some color, and emotions bring color, in my perspective anyways. Can you let the listeners know where they can find you?
Sure. I mean, for, the most instant access to me, Instagram, Tiff Tyler Film. And there's a lot of new things happening, but I have a show called Think Like a Producer, in which me and my co-host Christine Baird, we teach people how to kind of get over any fears and doubts and just letting their voice be heard by creating their podcast or their YouTube channel. And we go through some technical things, but we really like emotional intelligence. Her and I both had so much training in it, and we have a lot of fun helping people on the technical side, but really on the emotional side, allowing themselves to use their voice, be heard, start their show, start that thing that's burning inside of them, to get their voice and their opinion out in the world. So Think Like a Producer is a fun project, which you can also follow that at Think Like a Producer on Instagram. And yeah, those are the best ways to get in touch with me right now. And as things progress, I'll send you some links. As I keep doing new things, I am in a big place right now of trying a bunch of stuff, and I love it. I've never had so much time and freedom to try everything that I want to try. So if something new comes up, I'll definitely let you know. But those are the two places to find me.
I appreciate you being on the podcast, being so open, sharing your time with us, sharing your energy. And I'm thankful that you're feeding your curiosity in the way that it needs to be fed, in what you want to do, not just in a way of survival and things have to get done or the bills have to get done, in a way of let me try something new and develop myself. So thank you for what you bring into the world, Tiffany. It's appreciated.
Thank you, Nat. Oh my gosh, it's like a good little therapy session. I feel great. It's going to be a very productive day. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. Thank you for making it all the way to the end. I appreciate you and your time. If you found anything that was relevant, or perhaps there's somebody that you think can benefit from this podcast, please share it out. Help grow the community. Help grow Lift Oneself. You can find more information on our website at www.liftoneself.com. Until next time, be sure to be kind and soft with yourself. You matter.